Welcome in, everybody, to Car Biz Chronicles Season 5. I cannot believe we've been doing this show for 5 years. This little spinoff we like to do, it's educational at best, right? We try to have some fun with it, go outside of our normal realm of the show. This year, the theme of this year's Car Biz Chronicles is going to be the customer journey. We're going to show you guys exactly what people are going through right now buying a car, what their feedback is, what's happened to them. And Today, we're going to start with an interesting twist on that by going with someone who's in the car business, but who purchased a vehicle. Yes, teaser, spoiler alert, it is an EV, so we're going to get into that side of the world as well. Obviously, people know I have a little bit of passion about that, but the man we bring on today to help us with that, Marco Mantenuto. Marco, how are you, man?
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're really, really excited to have you. All right, so you bought an electric vehicle, Marco. First, tell me what attracted you to the space of electric vehicle. I know you're a very progressive young man, so tell me about first how you arrived at wanting to purchase an EV.
It was a need. So most people that purchase EVs, it's kind of funny because I've at the chargers, you get to meet a lot of people with EVs. And they're not shy to talk to you and spark up a conversation. So you get to see what they're driving, how much they drive. So a lot of people that drive EVs don't drive them that much, which was surprisingly for me. But I do a fair bit of driving, so I needed an EV. Diesels are no longer an option, and the ones that are out there are not doing the mileage that I needed. And EV was just it made the most amount of sense with the amount of driving I have to do every month.
The natural approach to the whole thing. Now, is that because where you're at right now, Marco, you have good infrastructure? Is that fair to say for you when you're going to look at that as an opportunity? Did you consider infrastructure, or because I believe you're in Toronto or in that area, is it already pretty solid to begin with and you knew that going in?
No, I had no idea about infrastructure. I didn't foresee that being a problem when I purchased the car. And it was about an hour and a half into the drive back from the dealership because I had to buy it outside of my province due to shortages. It was about an hour and a half, 2 hours into my journey that I realized how much of a problem it is, because infrastructure is I would say borderline inexistent where we are. So that was a shocker.
Yeah, so that's kind of a big one, right? And I think that's a big holdup for a lot of folks who do enjoy the drive, do a lot of driving. I'm a road trip guy here as well. And the idea of being able to plot that, I'm sure it's possible. It just seems more difficult than trying to plot it out around a typical, gas station fix. But what did you find out about infrastructure that surprised you the most? Was it how long things took to charge? Is it where they were located? What part of that stuck out to you once you learned about it?
So there's a bunch of challenges. Number one, there's different providers out there. I'd say probably 8 or 9 different providers. Each one of the providers needs you to have their app installed on your phone, and about 90% of them need you to deposit funds in these apps. So the minimum amount is usually $50. So for example, Flow, Petro-Canada, Electrify Canada, all these different Charge Lab, all these different providers require you to have some funds in your wallet, right? They're not direct charge, so you can't just charge your credit card to it or connect it to your Apple Pay or anything like that. So you got to add these funds. So now you have all this money in all these different apps, and they all have to be there available because you don't know, problem number 2, which provider you're going to be able to find when you need a charge in a pinch. So if you need to charge right away, you're running low, whatever the case might be, you're going to find the first level 3 charger you can get to and charge. So that's the biggest challenge, is essentially finding the charge stations and then having the correct app to charge. And then there's a ton of other stuff which I'm sure we'll get to anyways, but yeah, those are the biggest hurdles.
I saw a guy recently on LinkedIn from Australia who was here, and he was dropping his mom off at LAX, and that was his biggest frustration on earth. He's like, dude, how many apps does it take to charge a car? Like, why do I have to have 77 apps? Like, I just want to pull up, charge this thing. Ma's at the airport. I'm trying to get things handled, two for one. And he was unable to do so. That sounds like a huge headache. And someone like me, I don't do well with, I don't have patience for that when it should be so simple, right? There should be a way to go. But you dropped a little bit of a nugget there, and I'm wondering what it means. I circled it in my notes. What the hell is a level 3 charger, Marco? And what does that mean versus a level 1 charger?
So there's level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 1 is called almost like borderline a trickle charger, because it adds very little power. So if you were to translate that to kilometers or miles in your case, it would be 1 mile per hour that it adds to the vehicle. A level 2 charger, you're talking about 30 kilometers, so 15 to 20 miles per hour. And then you have a level 3 charger that will do 50 to 80 miles per hour added back.
And
again,
what is your car full charge? Like what would you need? How many hours do you need to get your car from 0 back up to the top?
So that's the problem. So every different car manufacturer allows you there's the charger to speak a language and the car to speaks another language. That language is kilowatt hour. So a car, a charger may be able to charge 150 kilowatts per hour input. So it can direct 150 kilowatts into your car. The problem is your car might not be able to accept 150 kilowatts. In my case, my car is I call it rudimentary. It's a compliance car that I bought. So it's very base level. So my car only accepts 35 kilowatt hours. So where a Tesla, I believe they're up to 150 or 200. The superchargers are about 200. I'm not well versed in Teslas. And then you have something like the Ford Mach-E that, if I'm not mistaken, again, don't quote me on the numbers, but they're around 70 kilowatt hours. So the time that it takes to charge a Tesla at a supercharger, call it 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get 300 miles or 400 kilometers out of it, it would take me that time to get 80 miles out of my car. So a level 3 charger will push as much energy as possible. It's a quick pit stop. But at the same time, it doesn't mean because it's a fast charger that your car will be able to keep up with the charging, with the charger itself. So what it takes me, and I get this a lot from the Ford guys because they're so frustrated. They have these cars, the Ford Lightning and the Mach-E, that take a long time to charge, even though they're at a fast charger. Versus the guy with the Tesla will show up 20 minutes later and he's back on the road, and he's getting the same or more range out of it, right? So,
and Tesla has their own network as well. Have you run into that? Is that a thing, Marco? In addition to all the apps that you described earlier, is that just an additional station, or is it only used for Tesla? What does that mean?
So there is so much that I discovered since I got my electric car, and I've sold EVs for a while, but until you actually own one and experience it, you never really get to see all these different levels and things like that. I get a dealership where we're allowed to take them over the weekend, but in a weekend, you do not get the feel for it. I invite anybody at a dealership to take an electric car for a week, 3 weeks, and try to life with it because you cannot use Tesla chargers. Now, in the US, the government actually just released, they're forcing Tesla to open up the charging network to everybody. Tesla, the reason why, like on the drive back, sitting there, I've always snobbed Tesla, and I said, I'm never going to buy a Tesla. Tesla, like, overpriced. The panels don't line up. It's the build quality is awful, blah, blah, blah. And then an hour and a half into my drive, I said, oh, the value of a Tesla is not in the build quality. It's not in the fact that the panels don't line up. It's not in the range. It's in their charging network.
It's in the infrastructure. Yeah.
The infrastructure is phenomenal. It's everywhere. And it bothers me so much that I show up to any mall and they have chargers there available, and they're all fast chargers, and all these Tesla guys can just plug in anytime, anywhere, and be on the road within 20 minutes, half an hour, and have what I have to sit there for an hour for. I get 20% of what they get. So the US has opened them up. So I believe it's actually last month or the month before that they had to open them up because they forced Tesla. Here in Canada, unfortunately, they still haven't opened them up. They do use different charging ports. There are 3 different charging ports for level 3 chargers. So there is one that, for example, a Nissan Leaf uses one. The Volkswagens, the Audis, the Mazdas, they use another one, a different level 3. And then Tesla has its own charger. So with Tesla, you actually have to get an adapter that goes into the charging port so that you can plug into any other any other charger, and vice versa. So if you wanted to, even if I wanted to use my, if I wanted to get my car charged at a Tesla station, I would have to, I would need an adapter for it. And part of that, like the government opening that up is just the first step. The other problem is the fact that the only people allowed to fix an EV cars are the dealerships that have sold them. So there is something called the Right to Repair Act that's very outdated here in Canada. I'm not sure how it is in the US, but when they wrote that, they said, everybody has the right to repair diesel, gas, propane, whatever cars, but EVs didn't exist back then. So nobody but the dealership has the right to repair these vehicles. So you are forced to go to the dealership. And a lot of the dealerships that here are still not equipped, whether it's the technician that's not trained for it or the infrastructure, they're not equipped to service electric vehicles. So that's the other thing that kind of bugs me quite a bit about the whole process. But yeah,
Wow.
I don't know if you knew that. Yeah.
Holy cow, dude. Well, I got to tell you, this is definitely why I've avoided anything near the discussion of an EV. So I'm glad to hear you doing it and you telling me all about it. Now let's actually get into the process. We know why you wanted to buy an EV. So how does the search begin, Marco? You're a car guy. So what angle did you already have an inside, or did you really go through the consumer journey because it was something that you weren't buying from a brand that you actually, obviously had or could, as you said, had access to them? So tell us what happens now that you've decided EV. Are you submitting leads? Are you learning about vehicles online? Tell me about it.
So I run a group called the Referral Network that connects dealers across Ontario and Canada. We even have a guy from Colombia in it, and it's just salespeople from all different dealerships. So I reached out to the people that I knew and I said, listen, I want an Ioniq. I want like anything that's electric. I don't care what the car brand is, whatever. Like I need an electric car. I don't want it. I need it. It was a little bit different. The wait times are redonkulous right now for EVs specifically. So I was being told 2 years, 3 years. We're not taking deposits. Those are the answers that I was getting from left, right, and center, which is kind of hilarious because it goes to show how a little bit out of touch our politicians are, because they're trying to force people to go EV, but there is no availability. So it was frustrating from a consumer perspective, because I was sitting there, I'm like, okay, I want to buy an EV because I'm tired of paying for gas. I'm also concerned about the environment because the amount of driving that I do will, affects the environment. So I need an EV. I want to make a difference and all that. And I can't, because everywhere I went, they said, no, sorry. Or if I went to the resale market, which I looked at Auto Trader, an Ioniq is selling for $85,000. And I don't care how good of a Hyundai it is. No Hyundai is worth $85,000 in the resale market. So I cannot force myself to, essentially get a mortgage to buy a car that was not, like for $85,000. I'm sorry, I'm looking at something a little bit more fun to drive.
Yeah, I mean, you can get three cars. You know what I mean? You could get two gas cars and half an electric car. I mean, again, that whole thing is really getting out of control, right? I think that's why Tesla is trying to own that market, right? Like if you lease cars from them, they have to go back to them. They're trying to control that secondary market, maybe to avoid this or to have more control over the pricing. I'm not positive, but we have the same problem here. And I like what you said, that political, idiocy doesn't change down here. Okay. It gets worse down here. It's even more bureaucratic red tape because people want all these things. But to your point, what do we have for infrastructure in the ground? And what do we have for actual available units, right? I mean, I'm not waiting 3 years to get a Hyundai. Yeah. I'm not waiting 3 years to get a pickup truck. I don't think most people are. Yet down here, Marco, it's a huge part of how people bang their chests, as dealerships. They're like, oh, look, we have 400 orders. You're never going to fulfill the guy who's 3 years out, dude. He will have found an EV, much like I assume you're about to tell me you did, that fulfilled the need well prior to the ordering time.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. So you have all these politicians going, we need to go, electric, or we need to get rid of combustion engine by 2030, 2026, whatever these, dates are. The infrastructure is one thing. It's a big one. Number two, the availability. And number three, the pricing, because it prices a lot of people out of the market. And an EV is not a cheap endeavor. They're not affordable for the people that are making $35,000-$40,000 Canadian per year. They
Correct.
can't go in and drop $50,000 on an EV because that's really the starting price is 50K for anything. I had to make a compromise. I had to, give up the range, and I had to give up, a few options and all that, because the only EV I could find in the market was the MX-30. So the Mazda, which is, well, it's a compliance car, because essentially, from what I hear, Mazda was forced to build it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to sell any vehicles. So they put together this thing that has a 150-kilometer range, essentially, real life range, which is, I don't know what that is in miles. I don't know, 100 miles.
Yeah.
So it is awful, god awful. The car itself is really nice. I love the interior. If it had a longer range, I would be so happy. But it has a 100-mile range, 150-kilometer range, and at the time nobody knew it existed, so there was availability. They were on the ground, so there's only two places where these cars are being sold: California and Quebec. So those are the only two places in North America that got those cars. So I contacted a friend of mine again through my network that works at a dealership in Montreal, Quebec. He said, "Yeah, I have two. I have this model and I have this model." I said, "Perfect. I'll take the black one." And he tried almost to talk me out of it. He's like, "Are you sure? It's got a 100-mile range. Are you positive? Just so you know, like, this is like this is what you're getting into." And he kept hammering into me. I said, "Yeah, but like, I just want an EV. I don't care about the range at this point. I need it. I'm driving too much." And put it this way, I did 15,000 kilometers with that car in 3 months. So
That sounds like a lot of stopping and charging, though, Marco, if that's the case.
it is. At first, it was a lot of stopping and charging. So you start modifying your life around it. So I would look at level 2 chargers, because those are more available than the level 3. So if I was at an appointment or whatever I was doing, I would plug the car in and walk to my appointment or whatever. And then when I was going home, just like when you go home and you plug in your phone, I was plugging in my car. And although I was on a level 1 charger at home, because I didn't have the, just like, it doesn't make sense for us to have a level 3 charger, a level 2 charger, because the house is a good solid 60 feet away from our driveway. So it would cost literally thousands of dollars to run the charger to the driveway. So I was running an extension cord with a level 1 charger, which means that I was getting maybe 30 kilometers, really not even that, overnight. And then during the day, I knew where all the level 3, I know where all the level 3 chargers are. There are some free ones even, and I would be hitting one of them up at least once a day, just to keep my battery topped up. And I would whenever I have to work out of with my laptop, I would keep all that work to when I was stopped at a level 3 charger, and just do work off my laptop while I'm there, and that's it, right? Like, you just start modifying and adapting your life, just like we've done with technology nowadays, plugging your phone in and all that fun stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, I love that you said that. You adapted your life. You were like, look, I've got to do this as part of my life, but I have to find a way to make it work around that. Obviously, right, like anything, trying to run line for anything, plumbing, water, electric away from your house, the prices get exorbitant. Moving things around. I know my wife and I just did a remodel recently, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I just want to move this sink over here on this side. My buddy, the contractor, looks at me and goes, no, you don't. I'm like, why not? I think it would make more sense over here. And he's like, it won't make more sense, dude. It's going to cost X and X. And I thought, all right, what a pain in the ass. But then you apply it to houses and looking at electric chargers, right? And people, it's all about tax benefits to some extent, putting them in the house. Some people include it in the car deals, whatever else. But you dropped an interesting word there, free. So talk to me quickly about the idea of a free charging port. Who the hell sponsors that and gives it away for free? And then price-wise, how do prices vary? Is it similar to gas stations between these apps, where it's sort of that pennies on the dollar that they vary in their cost to you?
So free chargers you're going to find them at grocery stores. You're going to find them at car manufacturers' head offices. I'm not going to mention who they are, because I like them I like the fact that not too many people know about it, so I don't have to wait for that.
I was gonna say there has to be something about a secret society of chargers where you find one, you don't tell people because you don't want to sit in line and wait, I assume.
Yeah, yeah. So there's the free charges and then the cost. Here's the funny, going back to the whole, how fast can your car charge versus another car. Here's the issue. It cost me to get 100 miles into my car. It cost me as much as the Tesla guy to get 300 miles or 250 miles, wherever that translates to. So whatever it cost me, what it cost me to charge it, because it's charged by the hour. It cost me, let's say $20 if I'm at a flow charger, because they cost $20 per hour to get 150 kilometers, so 100 miles. The same amount will cost the Tesla guy. If the Tesla guy pulls up next to me and charges at the same charging station, because he can get the full 150 kilowatts, it will cost them $20 to get 400 kilometers out of a charger, 450.
So it's not about the energy output, it's about the time one is hooked up to a machine?
Yeah.
How is that gonna? How does that refill itself? I mean, I know we're talking about the environment here, Marco. So I'm trying to be, nice about it because I believe whatever's wrong with this environment is already fucked and it's not coming back from that. However, I know we want to go down the electric road, so that's fine. But Marco, talk to me about how that makes sense long term. And again, who fits the bill on a free charger at the grocery store? Did the grocery store pay to have those put in and they're cool because they figure you're shopping? And how does that all work? And is there a plan? Have you heard of any plan to change that output? I mean, that just doesn't seem like it makes sense, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess it kind of does, though, if you apply it to gas, Marco. I guess to be fair, right? If you're at a gas station, if your truck needed 80 gallons and mine needed 20, we would still pay the same per gallon, but you're not paying on a per watt. You're paying on an hourly charge based on how quickly your car can do business. I don't know. How do you feel about that, man?
Drives me nuts.
Yeah.
I hate it so much. It just drives me absolutely nuts because I'm not like, you are not getting charged for the electricity by the hour. You're getting charged by the kilowatt, because that's what I get charged at home.
Yeah.
So why am I paying by the hour and all that? And it's unregulated, and that's the main issue. And just to give you an idea, I plugged in every single night when I got home for a month straight. My bill went up by $30
a month.
So per month, yeah.
So $1 a day to charge your car at home, basically.
Negligible.
So, but you're also not getting a full charge.
No.
If I remember the beginning of the story, I mean, it sounds like the thing is giving you, $1 worth of mileage on top of the $30 a month.
How much is my time worth versus the charging, right? So if I can do work when I'm stopped, great, fantastic. That's not always the case.
Right.
And then you got to keep in mind that the charger might be busy and there's other factors. The chargers might be down, which is a huge problem. A lot of the chargers are down. And then, like, even if I can get an extra 20 kilometers being plugged in at home, then get a top up to a full charge, I'm happy, because that's less time I have to spend at the charging station. That 20 kilometers makes a difference to me of 15 minutes at the charging station. So I'm going to take that 20 kilometers at home, where the car is just parked doing nothing overnight while I'm sleeping,
right,
being proactive. It's going to cost me $1 for the convenience. Like, who cares? But yeah, it's minimal. So I'm saying they're going, okay, it's $30. So let's say I go to the same charging place every day, and level 2 sucks in more power. Let's inflate that number, and what's it going to cost the business? $150. And here's the thing: I have gone into those businesses, because when you're sitting in a parking lot for an hour, 2 hours, whatever the case might be, you inevitably give money to somebody, because you're not just going to sit in a car and watch Netflix all 30 times.
No, you're at a grocery store, you're like, turns out I need some berries or whatever. I mean, you will stumble across that, right? I guess. Yeah.
You're going to go to the restaurant, you're going to eat at the place, you're going to go shopping in the mall where you're charging, you're going to do stuff like at the car manufacturer where I go and charge for free, the level 3 charger. There's a gas station there that, just put it this way, there's a patch of grass between the gas station and the chargers, and that patch of grass is worn down to the mud because people keep walking across and going to the gas station and buying a drink, buying this, using the bathroom, whatever the case might be. So inevitably you start giving business everywhere else, and because of the gas prices, it doesn't matter. I'm sitting there, I'm getting charged for free, or I'm paying, let's say, even if I have to pay $20 or whatever the case might be. whatever it is that I'm paying for that charge, if it's a level 2 especially, it's still substantially cheaper than going to a gas station at $1.69 a liter that we have today. So
It's
I'm
about planning
still,
your life around it, though. That's for sure. I think that that's
yeah.
one of my biggest takeaways is making sure that you have the plan for your life that says, look, this is not going to be a 5-minute situation or whatever the case is. Again, 25 minutes for a Tesla is not unreasonable. I am much like you. I will not get into the Tesla world. I am not a fan of the car itself, nor its leadership. So I have my own problems with them. But from a point of what we're trying to do here with the electric car, when you bought the car, so like you drove out there, did you trade something in, Marco, or what did the purchase look like on your end?
No, I didn't trade anything in. I leased the car because I knew I wanted to get out of it at some point because it wasn't a long-term solution. I went out there. It's a 6-hour drive. Well, 5.5 hours, 6-hour drive from Toronto to Montreal. And I picked up the car. I said, okay, listen, it's got a 100-mile range, 150-kilometer range. So I'm going to have to stop 4 times. It's going to take me an extra 3 hours to drive home. No big deal. What I didn't take in consideration is the fact that from Montreal to Toronto, half of the chargers are down. So they were either inexistent or not working. So that forced me to get off the highway and find level 2 chargers in the little towns that are around the highway there. And those level 2 chargers charge 30 kilometers an hour. So now all of a sudden, it didn't take me an hour to charge. It took me longer. So the 6-hour drive took me 13 hours.
Wow.
More than double.
But you are still with all of that considered, you are still happy that you have a Mazda electric vehicle. Is that right?
Happy is a very loose term when it came to that.
Okay, all right. So if we're not happy, if we're just sort of,
I'm happy I have an electric car. I'm happy I'm in the market that I jumped in. I'm happy that I have the keys to it and I can take it and not have to pay for gas. And whenever my girlfriend and I are going anywhere, we take the electric car because our JCW Countryman obviously costs more money to fill up, where you can just drive it for free, especially because when we're going somewhere together, it's a grocery store, it's something else, they'll have free chargers there.
yeah.
So I love not having to pay for gas. If there is one thing that I hate more than my Mazda is having to pay for gas. So it's one of those things where you're sitting in the middle. I'm not happy with the car. I hate it, but at the same time, I also highly dislike paying for inflated gas prices. So
Sure.
you pick one of the two.
You pick the lesser of the two evils. Look, I mean, those guys just had record profits, so I totally get everyone's frustration and why we need to have alternatives to doing business on that front. So you are an EV owner. I assume the next one will be an EV. What is the discussion like in the household with the girlfriend who does not have an EV? Are we working on getting her one? What does her feel now that she's seen yours? What has that done to the conversation around EVs in Marco's house?
Well, it's not just in the house. It's just anybody I talk to. I tell them, I say, just like I did. If you want to buy an EV, even if you don't want to buy an EV, you should be ordering an EV because that EV is going to be here in 3 to 5 years from now, and life changes, and deposits are refundable. So I dropped deposits on 2 other EV cars because, and one of them is the Chevy Silverado, for example, which has been released, but is not going to be available until 2025. So I'm already planning 3 years from now what car I want to drive because this is the kind of market we're in, and I know it's going to be an EV because now I'm addicted to the EV world and not paying for gas and all that. But the problem is, and I told my girlfriend the same thing. I'm like, because she drives just less than I do, but still just as much because she's in real estate. I said to her, you got to start thinking what your next car is going to be. And she's like, well, I just got this one last year. I said, yeah, but I'm not talking about what your next car is going to be in a month or 2 months or 6 months from now. Your next car is going to be in 3-4 years from now. And if we are still not catching up with the production of EV cars and everything else, and we're still not releasing that many EV cars into the market because every company's got 1 or 2 options, that's about it. You don't want to miss out. 3 years from now, when gas is going to be $3 a liter, whatever the case might be, even if it's not $3 a liter, who cares? You're going to want to drive an EV, right? So And that's the conversations I have with her and with everybody else. Like, whatever the case might be, it's $100 deposit for most EVs because you're ordering it through the manufacturer, not the dealership. Just drop $100 and order yourself a car. If the car arrives and you don't want it, take your money back or lose $100. Who cares? Just have that option on the table. Don't just dismiss it.
Interesting piece of advice there. I think a lot of people probably struggle with the foresight of that, Marco, right? The idea of car purchases, as you know it, a guy who's been in retail like myself for a long time, a good number of deals are done, because one feels one wants one, right? And the immediacy is what sells a lot of opportunities for us, at least in the past. Obviously, with the issues we're against today, it's a little bit different. But now here in the US, we're starting to see cars get on lots, right? Not EVs, but gas vehicles starting to get on lots, starting to stack up a little bit. People starting to have inventory. I wonder how long people will wait to get something they can have versus something maybe they would settle for that they could get now, EV, gas, or whatever. I think that your point is well received. Well, so you are an owner of an EV. I want to wrap this up because you've been great with your time. I really appreciate it. It sounds like you've already kind of given people the best advice you would give them as regards to it. But when looking for a new EV, your search took you out 6 hours from your house, Marco. Do you think that is common in the people that you're talking with? And what is your best advice to people who are looking for a vehicle if it isn't in their market area, but they don't have access to the group you have access to, right? So if you're going to recommend to the consumers checking out our show, what would you recommend to them as a way to start their process on EV? And how would you recommend they go about doing that?
So first and foremost, don't do what I did. Take a look at the infrastructure around your house, especially in the rural US. See what is around you in terms of charging. Be conscious of that. Once you've done that, then really the way I look at EV cars, it's very hard to go wrong. There's so little going on with them, and there is batteries and there is a motor, and that's it. Like there is a lot less that can go wrong with them in a sense. So you don't hear about a specific EV that has a ton of issues. When my car manufacturer releases a new engine or whatever the case might be, you have all these known issues with the drivetrain. You don't want to buy that one because of this, and this. The biggest issue with EV that you hear is the first model that came out, the range was this, the new one is this.
Yeah.
So figure out what car appeals to you, and car manufacturers are starting to come around in terms of design, because they all thought that EVs had to look like spaceships. And now they realize they just have to look like normal cars, and people will buy them. And so figure out what the look that you're going after, the brand you want to support, whatever moves your decision, and then just go into the dealership and drop a deposit. Take a look on countrywide if there is any availability anywhere else, and if you do find one outside of your province or your state, get that car shipped. Do not try to drive it back. Because the network is still unpredictable, and the availability of charging station is questionable. So just get that car shipped back to you. Don't make the mistake I made.
Was that one of the things you wish you would have done differently, Marco, in your end, or no? Because you've never owned an EV, you're glad you went through sort of the 6 hours out, 13-hour back procedure.
I am happy I went through it. Would I do it again? Absolutely not. It's worth every single penny of the $500 the transport company would have charged me, and a tip on top to get that car back to me instead of me driving it back. But it was a learning experience. What an EV owner takes a month to learn, I learned in 6-7 hours on the way back. The additional 6-7 hours that I had to drive back.
Education under fire for sure on that one. Look, I mean, as much as I bag on the EV world, I'm an early investor in Lucid. I'm a guy who watched that company from its very onset. I liked it. I liked kind of some of the things they were after. I think their design is cool. If I'm ever in the market, which I just told my wife someone's going to have to take my Subaru out of my dead, lifeless hands. But if it happens, that's probably the road I would go down. Marco, last question I have for you on this front. Within what you're seeing in the retail world, Are you seeing a lot of customers in your space coming to you about the EVs, and are they having the same kind of, availability questions to you? What is the discussion consumers are bringing to you as a sales guy about the EV availability and wanting to purchase
So discussions I'm having with clients and all that, it's they all want to go EV, but it's still this big unknown for them. So they don't you have, just like anything else, you have the early adopters who have sat there and have done all the research and they've made the decision to commit to it's like the first people that bought iPhones and wherever else. And then you have the followers right after. And I think people are still very cautious about purchasing EVs because it's just something strange and new and edgy in some cases. Weird to say that word, but yeah, that's what it feels like for some people. So there's still, the conversation. One thing you hear all the time is like, "Oh, I'm still waiting. I need longer range. I need this. I need that." But nobody needs the thing that the excuses that are coming up with. You can, the people that are saying I'm waiting because of the range. Range is a big factor and all that. It's really not a big factor. Most people don't drive what I drive. The amount that I drive. So most people can get away with an EV and they'll be happy with them. But yeah, that's really the consensus is like, oh, I still want to wait a little bit longer. Still want to wait and see how the technology works out and all that. And I mean, like, don't be afraid, jump in, order your next car that's going to be here in 5 years from now, and just take a leap and you'll be very happy. Once you jump into an EV, you'll be very happy you made the decision. And I still drive gas powered vehicles, don't get me wrong, but when I drive a gas powered vehicle, it's because I want to have fun.
And I know you got a classic, if I'm not mistaken. You're into some clubs and you've got some cool things you do with your life those cars will always be gas powered. That will be the part of the world. But as you said, it is a pleasure run, not a business run, not something you're required to use. Marco, man, thank you so much for your time today, folks. Look, if you haven't been thinking about it, you should be now. Marco brought you plenty of reasons to look at EVs, to get involved. And what my takeaway is we need to do better with infrastructure. Our politicians need to do better on slowing or getting people to hurry up, I guess. They need to slow down the rhetoric. They need to hurry up the manufacturers to do more. And more importantly, foresight, folks. If it's something you want today, you're not going to be able to walk outside your door and go purchase it. You're going to have to think ahead. So please do that. Marco, thanks a lot. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and tune in next time for the next iteration of Car Biz Chronicles Season 5. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.